So my history of anime is sporadic. I remember being really into it when I was about 14, and then again about sort of 19 or 20. During my 20s, I probably watched one anime through its entirety, and that was Death Note, which my wife was introducing me to because I was really big into the manga. And then this all changed about 2 years ago when we went to see Miyavi. We were in the hotel room ready to go out to the concert, and I was not up to speed with my wife's favourite Japanese musician, so I'm frantically looking him up on Google and Wikipedia. And this is when I come across, for the first time, Bleach live action movie. Bleach was one of the anime I was really into when I was about 19, and I still had a little bit of a kind of yearning feeling to go back and finish it because I never finished it the first time. And by the end of that night I decided I was going to do that and then watch the movie where Miyavi was playing my second favourite character in the whole series. Once I got to the end of Bleach, I decided, you know what, I'm going to watch another anime. Try and build up my repertoire of anime that I've seen. Here I am 2 years later and I've just finished watching my 10th. What I'm going to do is go through those 10 anime that I've watched over the last 2 years and rank them in order of preference. I'm going to go through them in the order I've watched them and then put them in order of preference. I'm going to try and go through these quickly, but if there are any anime that you want to hear me talk about further, just let me know in the comments. I am more than happy to prattle on about any anime on this list, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. So kicking it off with Bleach. Bleach was an anime that I was really into when I was 19. It's your typical shonen fare, and I was wondering, am I still going to be into it? The answer is somewhat. Yes, it is typical shonen fare, and it goes on for far too long. But there are still parts that I love, and the lore of the whole thing is one of them. Now, I know that Tite Kubo wrote the story simply as a way to facilitate him drawing his characters and giving them like a universe, a fleshed out universe for him to just continue drawing in. But there are parts of the story that are actually really good, especially everything in those first 50 odd episodes. Personally, I prefer Bleach, especially those first 50 episodes, to anything that Naruto and One Piece did. For that early part especially, I'm going to put it in at number 7 for now. Although, this probably will move around by the time I'm done. The next anime I watched was The Disastrous Life of Psyche K, also known as Psyche no Seinan or something along those lines. This is a series that my wife discovered on Netflix, actually, and we watched it together, and then watched bits of it with our daughter later. I don't know if she was actually recommended it by somebody else. I'm just going to say it, I don't tend to go to anime for humour. It's often not as good as, you know, the British sort of dry sitcoms that my wife and I tend to watch. But this is probably the one exception, because this is single-handedly the funniest anime I've ever seen. It takes every cheesy, ridiculous, stupid and or lazy trope of anime and creates a universe of characters all designed to just rub up the wrong way this superpowered male version of Daria. Being raised in Britain, my wife and I love dry sarcastic humour the most. My favourite thing about this show is its biggest weakness. That is the delivery of the English voice actors. It was too bloody good for it to just last for one season and then just be dropped for the next 2 seasons and only rely on subs.
I figure it's better than walking around outside. We should try to be inconspicuous. Less conspicuous than that.
When the dub is this perfectly funny, especially from the main character, you love to see a dub done well. Because this show is entirely jokes, just non-stop jokes, I do find it hard to take seriously, but there are parts that I've quite laughed at. So I'm going to put it in number 8. From probably the funniest anime I've ever seen to the second funniest anime I've ever seen, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I decided that I wanted to watch this series years ago when the to be continued meme was doing the rounds. Like many things, it took me ages to actually do that. And holy hell, when I did watch it, what a wild ride. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure can best be described as wild. In fact, this is the Donny Thornberry of anime. A quick rundown for the uninitiated. Part 1 is a gruesome murder mystery turned vampire horror set in Victorian England. Part 2 sees the two most flamboyant muscle men ever join forces with the Nazis to fight Aztec gods. Part 3 is the ultimate road trip comedy as we see 5 hench chads try to get from Osaka to Cairo, but having everything go hilariously wrong. Also, this scene. Part 4 is basically a high school drama with a ragtag group of teenagers teaming up to stop a pervert serial killer. And Part 5 sees the Italian mafia killing each other in cruel and inventive ways. But that backdrop of Italy is absolutely stunning. Now, I don't want to spend too long on any anime here, on any one anime. So the only other thing I'm going to mention about this show is that it's sublimely ridiculous. Every scene, episode, character, every line is 100% memeable, which is precisely why it's gained so much notoriety and such an obnoxious fan base. That said, there is nothing else like it, especially in its use of Western rock music to set the scene in these crazy worlds, or its art style, which I've not seen anything quite like. I'm going to put it at number 4. It is one of my favourite anime now, and I'm really looking forward to Stone Ocean. Full Metal Alchemist. Okay, here's a pet peeve of mine. Anyone who says, just watch Brotherhood, or jump across to Brotherhood when you get to this particular episode, because the rest of it is rubbish. For those who don't know, I'll explain. Over the past 20 years, the trend has generally been anime are only produced once the manga version reaches a certain level of commercial success. Like Naruto and Bleach, Full Metal Alchemist suffered this curse in disguise. It's a curse because if your show becomes popular very quickly, then the anime comes up quickly and the manga then has to work very quickly to either catch up, or you've got to include crap loads of filler. But unlike those other two series, Naruto and Bleach, they opted to use entire series of filler to allow the mangaka to stay ahead of the story. Bones, the studio behind the series, were granted permission to create their own story. I don't care if it's not the original story. The OG anime adaptation is moodier, darker, better paced, more story focused than action focused. All things I like to see in a show. Some of the characters got better treatment in my opinion in this version, and that ending to me is one of the best things I've ever seen in anything, not just anime. I'm going to mention Brotherhood in a bit. Spoiler, it's good, but this is better. And I'm going to put this in at number 3. Until now, I've only made one video about an anime, and it was about this one. Holic occupies the same part of my brain as a lot of Studio Ghibli stuff. And yes, I know that the animation is nowhere near in the same league, but like everything else in Holic, it's charming as heck. The psychological / supernatural thing that I usually go for gets a lighter touch here, with the spirituality of Japan being thrown in. And all of the characters are, well, charming. Charming is kind of the whole vibe of Holic. And charmed is how I felt when I was watching it. Now, it's not as potent in its delivery as pretty much everything else I'm going to be talking about today, but I love it. I'm trying to work out, does it beat Bleach or not? I'm going to put it in number 8. I may or may not sort my mind around about Bleach and Holic, and I'm going to move Psyche K down to position number 9. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I said I'd mention this one in a bit. Right, let me start with the positives. Firstly, it ends up being a really, really good story towards the end. And some of the characters just end up being so much more likeable. The entertainment value is probably better for a general audience, as it hits more sweet spots, particularly with the action and the balancing of light and dark. But I'm not going to say that just because the story is the one that the mangaka originally intended, and that makes it instantly better. Firstly, I didn't care for the whole host of Chinese influenced characters just being dropped in. The rest of Full Metal Alchemist seems to take place in something that is Bavarian, maybe English in some parts, maybe Viennese in other parts, and then you've got this Ottoman influenced race that's sort of there as well. I ended up really liking Ling, but you have 14 episodes setting up the story, the concepts, the characters, the history of the world, and I don't think Xing was mentioned once in all of that. And then suddenly you've got a new set of story, concept, characters and history to learn. And with them they brought something else that I really hate, which is a cutesy mascot character, a tiny little panda. Just, it felt so out of place in an anime that is otherwise very, very dark and gruesome. The action scenes are something that a lot of people rave about, but I just found that they rely quite heavily on flashing lights and characters and objects that just seem to teleport about the screen. You want to see a good Full Metal Alchemist fight scene? Edward vs. Greed in the 2003 version. And you'll understand why when I talk about the next anime that's going to be on this list. And then there's the humour in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. In fact, the jokes across both series are the same jokes. We get it. Edward doesn't like being called short. Armstrong's a muscly teddy bear. Mustang is a womanizer. Okay. While these jokes don't always hit the mark in the 2003 version, at least they were better timed. I literally sighed out loud several times watching Brotherhood because of a cheap gag intentionally ruining an otherwise serious moment. However, I am ranting a lot for an anime that still has one of the best stories I've ever seen. So it's not as good as the 2003 version for me, but it is very, very close. And some of the characters are fleshed out better. So the question now is, does it beat JoJo? I think the answer is no. JoJo is something very different. I may have grown up with Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon, but this is where my journey into anime really began. You want to see an action scene done right? Cowboy Bebop. You want moving stories told alongside possibly the best soundtrack ever put to anything ever? Cowboy Bebop. Can't decide between watching a sci-fi and a spaghetti western? Cowboy Bebop. The stories of Spike, Faye and Maria stuck with me for years after watching this the first time at the age of 14. And despite being a fictitious story set in 2079, there's still a part of me that finds myself asking, I wonder what Jet's up to now, every time I finish this series. There are anime on this list that handle light and dark really well, but Cowboy Bebop does this to such a degree that I find that it represents and romanticizes life itself. I said to my wife the other day actually, that my next series on this list has overtaken Cowboy Bebop as my favourite anime of all time. But on further reflection, no, what was I thinking? This is number one. So what was the anime that nearly overtook Cowboy Bebop? I only discovered this earlier this year and oh my god. Attack on Titan. So apparently this came out in 2013 and was massive. Like seriously, they had a theme park within 2 years of the first episode. One of the two bleakest anime that I will mention today, with some very dark and disturbing concepts and the perfect soundtrack. Like seriously, it's like Gary Newman with opera and it's very industrial metal, and then there's these pop elements and then like rap just comes in out of nowhere. It's very good. Attack on Titan hits every note for me, not just musically. The characters are gritty and hardened by trauma. The setting is dystopia within hope, within dystopia, within hope? Who knows? The action scenes are like nothing I've ever seen in any anime, perfecting the use of CGI with the smooth, frame by frame animation that I used to love from 90s anime. There are a few episodes in part 2 of series 3 where I felt like my heart was going to stop from the goddamn tension. And this was after I'd already spoiled it for myself and found out what was going to happen anyway. It can't beat Cowboy Bebop, it just can't. But it comes damn close. So yeah, position number 2. Those two I decided before I even started today. To say that I'm a fan of Death Note is a complete understatement. If I was talking about manga, first place. Death Note is absolutely my favourite manga of all time. As a collective, it is my 5th favourite book of all time. We have all 13 issues. We have the spin-off novels. We have the DVD box set. We have the live action film box set. Until a couple of weeks ago, I had a mug. And actually, I have 2 of these custom t-shirts made of Elle eating Misa's cake, which I got my wife to make for me. She also has another one with Ryuk on the back. We love Death Note in this house. But today we're just talking about the anime. Let's just say there are some glaring problems that get in the way of this anime being top drawer for me. The first 26 episodes, they got everything perfect. They literally nailed the manga perfectly. And then it all went wrong. We did not get to see the best of Nia's genius. Mellow's time was virtually cut in half. Entire plot points went missing. Literally, entire chapters went missing. No, it just would have made so much more sense to have them in. They really rushed the ending. And don't even get me started on the actual ending itself, where we're suddenly meant to feel sorry for Light. The thing that hurts me the most now is that this is how most people think that the story was intended to go. And a lot of people don't like the bit when Nia and Mello come in. I do suspect that this is how all manga readers feel about their favourite anime when they get trashed for something being taken out or something. Nonetheless, I do have to take some of their criticisms on the chin. They are right to have them as far as the anime is concerned. So, the last part of the anime really let the manga down. And for that reason I'm going to put it in at number 6. Now this is the last anime that I've watched. Sorry, I need to psych myself up for this. If my time on Reddit has taught me anything, it's that you cannot criticise Neon Genesis Evangelion without giving it a really long analysis and not get some kind of kickback, some sort of backlash, that's the word. I'm not going to give it a long analysis today. I'm not giving anything a long analysis, but if you want to hear that, please let me know. I'm happy to do so. I decided to watch this because I'd heard of this legendary anime that had saved the entire genre. First off, again, positives. I have a soft spot for that 90s aesthetic that is used in this and Cowboy Bebop. There were parts of the story that I really like too, such as the politics. And it does get really good too, around about episodes 19 to 23, before dissolving into probably the most unsatisfying ending of anything I've ever seen. Here's an educational aside with a spoiler attached. The Portuguese man of war is not actually a single creature. It is rather a collective ecosystem of other organisms all sharing a collective consciousness. This is what happens to humanity at the end of Evangelion. I wish I could say that was as creepy as it gets, but no. The nudity and sexualization in this is constant and seems to take place mostly around the literally named children. Don't even get me started on the end of Evangelion movie, because I want to keep this video somewhat family friendly. I really wanted to give this show a fair chance. And before you think, well, maybe you just didn't get it, I did. And I even went back through all of the fandom wiki to see if there was anything I missed, because the whole thing just left me feeling intellectually hollow, not just emotionally hollow, but intellectually hollow. Like the feeling of, why did I just watch that? To that end, Neon Genesis Evangelion is going in 10th place. There are moments where it's good, and I can see how, like, from a filmic perspective, this saved anime. But as far as story and characters go, I just, yeah, no, not for me. And with that, we have my full rundown of the last 10 anime that I've watched in the order of my preference. If you want to hear me rant about or gush over any anime on this list more, just let me know, as I keep saying. Just comment which one, honestly, and I'll definitely try and get around to it before the end of this year, probably before the end of summer if things go well. Otherwise, you should know by now what I like in terms of anime, and if you've got something you really recommend, thinking, oh, that really fits in with Cowboy Bebop and Fullmetal Alchemist, let me know. I'm looking forward to hearing it. Until next time, stay safe and see you.